People have challenged each other's views for much of human history, but social media has changed the people's ability to express their opinions freely, especially since major social media outlets have become narrative controllers. Therefore, ordinary people are having a hard time finding a fine line between the establishment and big tech companies of Silicon Valley. The term that best describes the suppression of online opinions is cancel culture, which refers to the authoritarian practice of withdrawing support for public figures after they have done or said something, even if 10 years ago, but considered today by the big tech objectionable or offensive. There are many examples of public figures who were cancelled or deplatformed from social media, but the latest example is Andrew Tate, who has been banned from Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube for violating policies on dangerous organizations and individuals. The crazy thing about the label dangerous organizations is that the self-identified neo-Nazi Azov battalion is not considered a dangerous organization by these same outlets, which only shows how much big tech has become embedded with the imperial establishment and their dictatorial practices. While a lot of liberals naively thought cancel culture will only hit people who are really racist, misogynist, or violent, the pandemic proved otherwise, especially with the attempts of canceling Joe Rogan for hosting and asking legitimate questions to renowned experts on the matter. However, the mob who believes in cancel culture has crossed all red lines with the assassination of journalist Darya Dugina, daughter of Russian philosopher Alexander Dugin. When Al-Qaeda committed genocide in northern Latakia and blew up the largest cancer hospital in Aleppo in 2013, the corporate media said the rebels occupied Assad strongholds. Today, the mainstream media is justifying the murder of a journalist by falsely calling her father Putin's brain and Putin's spiritual guide, and the fascist mob on Twitter is celebrating her death. A red line that no one should have crossed. But with Ukraine publishing names of public figures on a death list and later declaring their liquidation, we entered a new era where the cancel culture has moved from deplatforming to extermination. So if you work for corporate media and you publish hit pieces against your fellow journalists who you don't agree with, you are paving the way for and justifying any harm against them, including murder.
I mean, I'll tell you now, you look at Ukraine, the situation in Ukraine was completely, I believe it's completely NATO's fault. They knew what they were doing. They kept prodding Russia. They kept poking the bear. They kept poking the bear. They kept poking the bear. And now that Russia has finally retaliated, which it had no choice but to do within its own self-interest, right? He had to eventually do something. It was been going on a long time. He eventually retaliated. I'm very, very glad NATO hasn't stepped in. Of course, I don't want World War III, but we're just sending loads and loads of weapons to delay the inevitable, just to cause more casualties and more pain for both sides, more headaches for Russia. You think the Americans give a shit? Ukraine could just roll over, give up what Russia wants and just end all of it, right? But because that's what's going to happen in the end. But no, we want to make sure that Russia loses as much money, time and money and men as possible. Who cares if a million Ukrainian civilians die? Let's keep sending Javelin missiles and let's control the media narrative. If you scroll through Twitter, the media narrative they're purporting is that if you make Molotov cocktails, you can take out Russian tanks. You're going to get annihilated. Like it's literally they're convincing people to commit suicide. It doesn't matter because that just puts up the civilian casualties, adds to the narrative they need to make Russia the bad guy. And the worst thing about all of this, we made all these sanctions, these unprecedented sanctions against Russia. And now we're suffering mass inflation and fuel crises. And the ruble's at all-time high. If people think Russia's the only country who's going to do this, then they're sadly mistaken, because what America has shown is if you don't agree with everything we want geopolitically, that your sovereign debt is no longer safe. And there's a whole bunch of countries in the world, China being the next one, who are taking a long, hard look at that going, okay, well, if we're not safe to have dollar debt, then we're not going to do it. Yeah. And then America's in big trouble. I mean, empires never last long, right? I think we all know about the cycle of empires. Yeah. I think if you look at you look at the cycle of empires, you look at how Rome fell. The American empire is
until this point was based on freedom. How they advertised you to be a good slave was they would give you some freedom. And when I say slave, I use that word particularly because a slave used to work his ass off and he would get food and a house in return. And 99% of people out here, my friend, are working their asses off. They can buy food and a house. That's it. Most people are still slaves. They would tell you you're going to be a slave, but you'll be free at least. You know, you can do what you want. You can think what you want. You can say what you want. You can walk around outside, look at the trees. You're a slave, but you're free. Freedom, freedom, freedom. And what happened when they did this, something changed. The internet came. People started to talk. People started to think. People started to realize how money's made. People started to realize it's all a scam. Cryptocurrency was invented. Now you have Bitcoin, which is surpassing the global reserve currency. We don't need banks anymore. We don't need the IMF anymore. People are starting to talk. People have elected Trump, a man who's not bought and controlled by the establishment. People are starting to actually get their minds right. So the people in charge are like, oh, fuck. We're losing control. We no longer control the money. We no longer control who's in charge of each country. Oh, fuck, we got to put an end to this. We can no longer base our societies on freedom. We must base our societies on safety. You can't think for yourself. We can't put these videos on YouTube because it's fake news and it's dangerous. You can't go outside because the virus and it's dangerous. You can't travel in between countries without that injection because it's dangerous. This is no longer about freedom, my friends. This is about your safety. They're going to take all your freedom away and instead they're going to give you a nice big helping of safety. And you're going to take it and go, oh, at least I'm safe. You were safer before. You were safer before because now the government can arrest you for saying something they don't like. Because now you're spreading fake news. You were safer when you could have an opinion.
I've been your host, Geopolitics of Syriana Analysis. If you like my reporting, please subscribe and hit the like button as it really helps me with the algorithm of YouTube. And if you want to support my work, please become a patron. Link in the description below, and see you next time.